What if I told you that the Bible, that book so many people keep on their nightstand but few have actually read carefully, contains a complete system for building wealth? I'm not talking about empty prosperity. I'm not talking about false promises. I'm talking about time-tested principles, thousands of years old, that the wisest men in history were already following while the rest of the world was still figuring things out. And the most remarkable part? These principles work in silence, no showing off, no flexing, no posting what you have on social media, no needing anyone's validation. Welcome to the video that might change the way you see money, faith, and your future. But before we go any further, I need to ask you a question that's going to make you uncomfortable. And it should make you uncomfortable. Why are so many people who go to church, who pray, who read the Bible, still struggling financially every single month? Is the problem with God? Is it with the Bible? Or is it with the way we interpret what's written? Stay with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to show you 7 verses that most people read without understanding, skim through without applying. And that's exactly why they stay right where they are. But those who truly grasp the depth of these words, act in silence, and over time reap results that the world simply can't explain. Now, before we get into the first verse, I need you to understand something fundamental. The Bible was never against wealth. What it condemns is a disordered love of money. There's a huge difference between serving money and making money work for you. And that distinction starts right here with our first verse. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 11 says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." Simple, right? But now be honest with me. How many times have you fallen for get-rich-quick schemes? Pyramid schemes, gambling, miracle promises that vanished along with your money. The Bible already knew. Over 3,000 years ago, Solomon, the wealthiest man who ever walked the face of the earth, was already warning us. Wealth that comes fast disappears fast. And here's the first mental trigger I want to activate in your mind today. The wealthy people who stay wealthy didn't get rich overnight. They built it brick by brick in silence while everyone else was laughing, doubting, or simply not paying attention. Warren Buffett, widely considered one of the greatest investors in history, spent decades accumulating the vast majority of his fortune. Not because he lacked talent before, but because consistent, quiet, steady building is exactly the strategy that the math of compound interest rewards. And that's not a coincidence. That's a biblical principle at work in the real world. So the first step to getting rich in silence is this: stop chasing shortcuts. Start honoring the process. Plant slowly, water with discipline, and harvest with abundance. And this is just the beginning. Because the second verse is going to show you something that most people completely overlook when it comes to planning and prosperity. And once you get it, you're going to want to pause this video and write it down right now. But before we continue, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Hit that red button and turn on notifications. Because the content we share here isn't for everyone. It's for those who are ready to level up. Have you ever stopped to look at the people around you who are always complaining that they never have money left over? That their paycheck doesn't last the month? That life is just too expensive? Now tell me, do those same people have a plan? Do they have written goals? Do they know exactly where every dollar that comes into their account is going? The answer, in most cases, is no. And I'm not here to judge. I'm here to show you that this isn't bad luck. It's not a lack of opportunity. It's a lack of planning. And the Bible has been warning us about this for thousands of years. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, but the plans of the hasty lead to poverty." 2 words in that verse need to get into your head and never leave: diligent and hasty. The diligent person plans. The hasty person reacts. The diligent person builds. The hasty person destroys. The diligent person reaches abundance. The hasty person reaches poverty. That's simple, that's straightforward, and that powerful. Now here's the trigger I want to activate in you today. Most people spend more time planning a vacation than planning their own financial life. They research hotels, compare flights, put together an itinerary. But when it comes to money, they just wing it. Month after month, year after year. And the result? They get to December with no idea where everything they earned throughout the year actually went. That's not fate. That's the consequence of a choice, conscious or unconscious, to not plan. But here's where a lot of people stumble when they try to push back on this principle. Some say, but God is the one who provides. I don't need to worry about planning. All you need is faith. And I agree that God provides. But look at what the Bible itself says about that. Luke chapter 14 verse 28 says, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it?" Jesus himself used planning as an example of wisdom. He didn't say, "Trust and build without thinking." He said, "Sit down, count the cost, make a plan, and then build." Faith without planning isn't faith. It's recklessness dressed up as spirituality. The great patriarchs of the Bible were planners. Joseph in Egypt planned through 7 years of abundance to survive 7 years of famine, and saved an entire nation. Noah didn't build the ark in a day. Abraham didn't reach the promised land without a journey and a direction. The wealth that lasts is always the child of the planning that persists. So here's the second principle for getting rich in silence. Write your plans down. Put them on paper. Set monthly goals, yearly goals, long-term goals. Know exactly what's coming in, what's going out, and where you want to end up. Because the diligent person who plans in silence is the same one who one day surprises the world with results that nobody saw being built. And speaking of building in silence, the third verse is going to reveal a principle that goes against everything modern consumer culture has taught you. It's about a habit that separates those who accumulate from those who waste. And once you hear it, you'll understand why so few people ever truly prosper. Stay with me. The best is still ahead. And if this content is adding value to your life, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. A friend, a family member. Because the right word at the right time can change someone's life forever. Now, I need to tell you something that's going to sound completely illogical at first. Something that goes against everything the scarcity mindset has taught you. Something the modern financial world rarely talks about, but that the most prosperous people in history have always practiced. Those who give receive more. Yes, you heard that right. And I'm not talking about superstition or magical thinking. I'm talking about a spiritual and practical principle written into the pages of the Bible and confirmed in the lives of people all around the world. But before you click away thinking this is just preacher talk, give me 30 seconds. Because what I'm about to show you is going to completely change the way you see generosity. Proverbs chapter 11, verses 24 and 25 says, "One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Think about this with me. Why would a book written over 3,000 years ago connect generosity with prosperity? Was Solomon just coming up with a feel-good quote? No. Solomon was a keen observer of human nature, and he noticed something that modern science only confirmed much later. Generous people attract connections, opportunities, and abundance in ways that selfish people simply never can. Here's a fact that might surprise you. Studies in behavioral psychology show that people who practice generosity regularly report higher levels of satisfaction, purpose, and, get this, financial prosperity over time. Not because the universe is magical, but because generosity opens doors, builds bridges, and creates networks that selfishness never could. And in the Bible, this isn't a new idea. It's a law. But here comes the pushback that a lot of people use. I can't give because I barely have enough for myself. Once I have more, then I'll start helping others. And the Bible shuts that thinking down with surgical precision. Luke chapter 6, verse 38 says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." The principle isn't, wait until you have more, then give. The principle is, give first, and the same measure you use will come back to you. That's not naivety. That's active faith. It's putting a spiritual principle into motion before you ever see the result. Think about a seed. You don't plant after the harvest. You plant before, trusting that the ground will respond. Generosity works exactly the same way. You don't wait for abundance to be generous. You are generous in scarcity, and abundance comes as the response. The wealthiest men in biblical history were givers. Abraham gave. Job gave. And the Bible doesn't record these men as poor. It records them as blessed beyond measure. So here's the third principle for getting rich in silence. Build the habit of generosity. Give with joy, with intention, and with faith. Not because you have a lot, but because you understand that what flows multiplies, and what is held back out of fear rots. Start small if you need to. A kind gesture, a helping hand, a tithe, an offering. The size matters less than the consistency and the heart behind the act. Because in silence, while the world accumulates out of greed, the wise person prospers through generosity. And speaking of wisdom, the fourth verse is going to show you why most people sabotage their own prosperity without even realizing it. And it has everything to do with something that happens every single day, in your words, on your social media, and in your relationships. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. Let me ask you a quick question, and I want you to answer honestly, even if the answer makes you uncomfortable. If you lost your source of income today, what would happen to your life in 30 days? Would you have savings? Would you have a plan B? Would you have something set aside to support you and your family while you figured out your next move? If the answer is no, you're not alone. The vast majority of people are living on the financial edge, depending on a single paycheck, a single income source, a single opportunity. And when that one source dries up, everything falls apart. But the Bible already had the answer to this, and it's found in a verse that seems simple on the surface, but carries one of the most powerful financial strategies that exists. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 2 says, "Invest in 7 ventures. Yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land." Translated into modern terms, diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. This principle that Wall Street, the world's greatest investors, and the most respected financial advisors teach today was already written in the Bible centuries before any financial market ever existed. And here's the part that should really grab your attention. Solomon wasn't just talking about money. He was talking about a mindset. The mindset of someone who understands that the future is unpredictable, and because of that, acts with wisdom in the present. Look at the phrase, "You do not know what disaster may come upon the land." He didn't say, if a problem comes. He said, you do not know when the problem will come. A crisis isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. The only question is when. And those who understand that don't get paralyzed by fear. Those who understand that prepare in silence. But here's the objection a lot of people raise. I don't have enough money to diversify. I barely have anything left at the end of the month. And the Bible answers that with a clarity that cuts right through. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 through 8 says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest." The ant doesn't wait for winter to start storing food. It stores in the summer, when everything is going well. Precisely so, it's prepared for when things aren't going well. That's the logic of quiet prosperity. Build your reserves when you can, so you can survive and thrive when the world around you is falling apart. In practical terms, that means creating multiple streams of income. It could be a small side business, a monthly investment, even a small one, a skill you can monetize, an emergency fund that grows a little every month. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It just has to be consistent. It has to be intentional, and it has to be done in silence. Because the person who gets rich quietly isn't the one who earned the most. It's the one who knew how to save, diversify, and protect what they worked so hard to build. And here's the fourth principle for getting rich in silence. Never depend on a single source. Plant in 7, plant in 8, because you never know where your next blessing will come from, or where your next challenge will come from either. Diversification isn't a lack of trust in God. It's wisdom that honors what He's already given you. And speaking of honoring what you have, the 5th verse is going to reveal a silent enemy that steals the prosperity of millions of people every single day. And it lives inside your own head. Once you find out what it is, you'll understand why so many people earn a lot and still end up with nothing at the end of the month. Stay right here. This is one of the most important parts of this entire video. I want you to imagine a chain. Invisible, but heavy. You can't see it, but you feel the weight of it every single day. It tightens when the bill arrives. It suffocates you when your card gets declined. It paralyzes you when the month runs out before the paycheck does. That chain has a name. Debt. And the Bible, with all of its ancient wisdom, did not soften that reality. It didn't wrap it in pretty words. It was direct, raw, and precise. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7 says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." Slave. That's the word the Bible uses. Not indebted, not financially committed. Slave. And when you truly understand the weight of that word, everything changes. Because a slave doesn't choose where they go. A slave doesn't decide how they spend their time. A slave works, but the fruit of their labor belongs to someone else. Sound familiar? Think about it. How many hours of your month are spent working just to pay off debts you took on in the past? How many portions of your paycheck are already gone before it even hits your account? How many decisions in your life, where to live, what to eat, how to get around, are dictated not by what you want, but by how much you owe? That's modern-day slavery. And it doesn't use iron chains. It uses bills, credit cards, and loans with interest that keeps growing while you sleep. And here's where a lot of people push back. But everybody has debt. It's normal. It's just part of life. And the Bible responds with a truth that stings. Romans chapter 13, verse 8 says, "Let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law." The Apostle Paul didn't say debt was unavoidable. He said the goal is to owe no one anything. Not because debt is a sin in itself, but because it steals your freedom, compromises your future, and limits your ability to be blessed and to be a blessing to others. Quiet prosperity isn't built by accumulating things you can't afford. It's built by eliminating what holds you back, breaking free from what suffocates you, and creating space for abundance to flow without obstacles. Every debt you pay off is a chain you break. Every payment you eliminate is one more step toward the financial freedom God always intended for you. So here's the 5th principle for getting rich in silence. Run from debt like you'd run from a trap. Because that's exactly what it is. If you're already in debt, make a plan. Pay off the smallest ones first. Negotiate the larger ones. And starting today, don't buy what you can't pay for in cash or without compromising your future. Because quiet wealth isn't built by those who earn the most. It's built by those who free themselves the most. And speaking of freedom, the 6th verse is going to reveal a principle that very few people actually put into practice, but that sits behind almost every great fortune built with integrity. It has everything to do with something you do every single day without realizing it. And depending on how you use it, it could be making you poorer or making you richer. Stay right here. We're almost at the finish line, and the best principles are still ahead. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself. When was the last time you invested in yourself? Not in clothes, not in entertainment, not in comfort, but in knowledge, in learning, in developing a skill that made you more valuable, more capable, more prepared for the opportunities life puts in front of you. If you had to think hard to answer that, this part of the video was made exactly for you. Because there's a silent enemy that steals the future of millions of people every single day. It doesn't show up on your bank statement, it doesn't arrive as a bill, but it charges an incredibly high price over the years. That enemy is called financial ignorance. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7 says, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom, and whatever you get insight." Notice the strength of that instruction. Solomon didn't say, "Wisdom is important." He said, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom." It's the priority. It's the first investment. It's the foundation on which everything else is built. And he goes even further. Whatever you get, meaning use every resource at your disposal to gain understanding. Money, time, energy, attention. All of it. Here's something that might surprise you. Most people who earn a lot of money and are still broke aren't broke because of a lack of income. They're broke because of a lack of knowledge about what to do with that income. Earning more without knowing how to manage it is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. The water goes in, but it flows right back out at the same speed. And the bucket never gets full. That's why there's a sobering statistic that shows the majority of lottery winners end up poorer than they were before they won. Not because they were unlucky, but because the wealth arrived before the knowledge needed to sustain it. And here comes the classic excuse. I don't have time to study. I work all day. I'm exhausted. And the Bible responds with a wisdom that leaves no room for excuses. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 says, "My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priests. Because you have ignored the law of your God, I also will ignore your children." Destroyed. Not held back, not limited. Destroyed. A lack of knowledge doesn't just keep you where you are. It pulls you backward. It causes you to make wrong decisions, fall into traps, waste opportunities, and stay stuck in cycles of scarcity that could have been broken with the right information at the right time. Those who get rich quietly are, first and foremost, quiet students, while others spend hours scrolling through social media, consuming empty content. They read, they study, they learn about finance, investing, business, and human behavior. They develop skills that the market rewards. They understand that every hour invested in learning is an asset that never loses its value. Knowledge doesn't disappear with inflation. It doesn't collapse in a crisis. It can't be stolen. It's the only investment that stays with you forever. So here's the 6th principle for getting rich in silence. Invest in knowledge before anything else. Read one book a month on personal finance. Watch content that challenges you intellectually. Find mentors. Take courses. Build skills that multiply the value of your time. Because when wisdom comes in, poverty starts going out. And when understanding governs your decisions, every step you take is a step closer to the abundance God planned for your life. And speaking of God's plan, we've arrived at the 7th and final verse. And I saved the most powerful one for last, because this principle ties together everything we've covered so far. It's the invisible foundation on which all true and lasting prosperity is built. You won't want to miss this. Stay until the end, because what comes next might be exactly what you needed to hear today. We've made it to the end of this journey, and before I hand you the seventh principle, the most powerful one of all, I need you to do one simple thing right now. Stop. Take a deep breath, and think about everything we've covered together up to this point. We learned that wealth gained quickly disappears quickly, but what is built with patience lasts. We learned that the diligent person who plans reaches abundance while the hasty person reaches poverty. We learned that generosity doesn't make you poor. It multiplies what you have. We learned that diversifying is wisdom, not a lack of trust. We learned that debt is slavery and that financial freedom begins the moment you break those chains. We learned that knowledge is the most valuable investment that exists. 6 powerful principles. 6 keys that very few people use. 6 truths the Bible has carried for thousands of years that the modern world keeps refusing to accept. But there is a 7th key, and it isn't just another principle. It is the foundation of all the others. Joshua chapter 1 verse 8 says, "Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful." God speaking directly to Joshua, a man who was about to lead an entire nation into the promised land. And what was the instruction? What was the secret God revealed before the greatest conquest of Joshua's life? It wasn't a military strategy. It wasn't an economic plan. It wasn't a magic formula. It was meditation on the Word, day and night. And here's the final trigger I want to activate in you today. Every principle we covered in this video only works when it's rooted in something greater than technique, when it's rooted in purpose, in faith, in a deep connection with the one who is the source of all wisdom and abundance. You might know everything there is to know about personal finance. You might master investing. You might have the best financial plan in the world, but if your prosperity isn't anchored in solid values, in timeless principles, in a life aligned with God's wisdom, it can crumble just as fast as it was built. And here's the final answer for anyone who still doubts that God wants you to prosper. 3. John chapter 1 verse 2 says, "Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." God wants things to go well for you, not just spiritually, in everything, in your health, in your finances, in your relationships, in your career, in everything. But that prosperity comes with a condition, that your soul is doing well, that your foundation is solid, that your decisions are guided by wisdom and not impulse, by faith and not fear, by purpose and not vanity. So let me say something to you before this video ends. You didn't make it to this point by accident. You watched this video all the way through because there's something inside you that knows, that believes, that your story isn't over yet, that the chapter of abundance has yet to be written, that the best is still ahead. And I believe that right along with you. Because quiet wealth isn't for the lucky. It's not for the privileged. It's for the disciplined, for those who plan when others improvise, for those who save when others spend, for those who study when others scroll, for those who trust the process when others give up. It's for you. Today's closing thought is this: true wealth doesn't start in a bank account. It starts in the mind. And the mind that meditates on God's wisdom, that applies His principles with faith and consistency, that moves in silence while the world makes noise, that mind will inevitably produce results that the world cannot explain, but cannot deny. Start today with what you have, from right where you are, one step at a time, in silence. And if this content touched your heart today, if any of these verses spoke directly to your situation, then I have one simple request. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that red button down below and turn on notifications so you never miss a thing. Because every week we bring content just like this. Deep, life-changing, and rooted in wisdom that never fails. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. A friend, a family member, someone who's struggling financially and needs a different perspective, because the right word at the right time can change someone's life forever. Thank you so much for staying until the end. May God bless every step of your journey toward the prosperity He always planned for you.